I've got our verbs ready, so let's learn all about separable verbs in the perfect tense. Heute lernen wir alles über trennbare Verben im Perfekt. So, in my last lesson we talked about regular and irregular verbs in the perfect tense, and over the next two lessons we're going to look at separable and inseparable verbs in the perfect tense. So, first of all, what is a separable verb? Well, in German, verbs sometimes have prefixes added to them, and these are very important because they change the meaning of the verb. So, for example, zum Beispiel, we could take the verb kaufen. Kaufen means to buy, but the verb einkaufen, so that's a separable verb, einkaufen, has the prefix ein, and this changes the meaning to shop, or to do the grocery shopping. When using separable verbs in the perfect tense, there are certain rules we have to follow. Get them right and you'll never go wrong. If you like, you can download the free PDF linked in the description below, which comes with extra exercises and a summary of today's lesson. And stay on until the end for my top tip on how to recognise separable prefixes and therefore separable verbs. Fangen wir an. So first, let's take a look at some of the most common separable verbs that are also regular. So we need to take an infinitive. I've gone for mitmachen, which means to join in. Mitmachen. So Nummer eins, we need to remove the en, so we get mitmach. And then we're going to form the past participle, which is the tricky thing with separable verbs. This is a regular verb because machen on its own is regular, so we add a t to the end of the past participle. And the most important thing to remember is that you need to add the ge between the prefix and the rest of the verb. So you end up with the past participle mitgemacht. Mitgemacht. Then we have to do the usual things. We need to decide on our auxiliary verb. So mitmachen, to join in, there's no movement or change of state, so we're going to choose haben. And we need to remember to put the past participle, mitgemacht, at the end of the clause. So how would you say, I joined in today? Ich habe heute mitgemacht. Oder heute habe ich mitgemacht. Habe, the auxiliary verb, is in the second idea, and mitgemacht, the past participle, is at the end of the clause. Let's have a look at a few more common regular separable verbs. I've got two pairs for you. So the first pair is aufmachen and zumachen. Aufmachen means to open and zumachen means to close. So how would you say, I opened the door and I closed the door? Pause the video and have a go, and then we'll look at the answers together. So, aufmachen, to open. Ich habe die Tür aufgemacht. Ich habe die Tür aufgemacht. That ge goes in between the prefix auf and the main verb machen. Sehr gut. And then we have zumachen. Ich habe die Tür zugemacht. Ich habe die Tür zugemacht. Sehr gut. Our next pair is einschalten and ausschalten. Einschalten, you may also see anschalten, means to turn on or to switch on. And ausschalten means to switch off. So how would you say, I switched the light on and I switched the light off? Pause the video and have a go. I turned on the light, or I switched on the light. Ich habe das Licht eingeschaltet. Or if you wanted to use the verb anschalten, then ich habe das Licht angeschaltet. And I switched off the light. Ich habe das Licht ausgeschaltet. So the ge is between the prefix and the rest of the verb. This is a regular verb, and you might have noticed that there's an et ending on ausgeschaltet, not just a t. This is because regular verbs with a stem, so once we've got rid of the en, their stem ends with t, d, m or n, are difficult to pronounce if we don't add the extra E. So if we just had ausgeschaltet, it would be impossible to say. So it's ausgeschaltet with that E there. So we've come to my last regular separable verb example. And I've chosen the verb aufwachen. Aufwachen, to wake up. So how would you say he woke up at 10 a.m? Pause the video and have a go. Now we've got a change of state here from sleeping to being awake. So ist, we're using sein, ist 10 Uhr aufgewacht. Sehr gut. Machen wir weiter. Let's move on to our second category of separable verbs. And these are slightly irregular. If you're not sure what I mean by slightly irregular, I've explained it in my video on regular and irregular verbs in the perfect tense. So our first examples, I'm using another pair of verbs. We've got abfahren, to depart, and ankommen, to arrive. So how would you say the train has just departed? And how would you say the train has just arrived? Have a go and then we'll check our answers together. So these are both movement verbs. We're going from one place to another. Nummer 1. Der Zug ist gerade abgefahren. The GE is in between the prefix ab and the main verb fahren. And fahren is slightly irregular, which is why it ends in an en in the past participle rather than a t. Der Zug ist gerade abgefahren. And the train just arrived. Der Zug ist gerade angekommen. Same thing, GE between the prefix and the main verb, an and kommen is slightly irregular, ending in en, so angekommen. Sehr gut. Another example in this category is Fernsehen, to watch TV, a very common verb, Fernsehen. So how would you say we watched TV last night? Wir haben gestern Abend ferngesehen. Fantastisch. Another example, anrufen. Anrufen means to call somebody. So how would you say I called or I phoned my uncle today? Ich habe meinen Onkel angerufen. And my last example in this category is anfangen. Did you notice at the start of the lesson how I said, fangen wir an? Let's begin. Anfangen means to begin or to start. So you might use this if you were talking to a friend, maybe phoning them up or texting them. The lesson started at 8 a.m. Where on earth are you? It's already 8:30. So how would you say that in German? Pause the video and have a go and then we'll look together. Der Unterricht hat 8 Uhr angefangen. GE between the prefix an and fangen. Angefangen. And the rest of the translation, der Unterricht hat 8 Uhr angefangen. Es ist schon 8:30. Wo bleibst du denn? Nützliche Vokabeln. Let's move on to our last category of separable verbs, irregular verbs. Beispiel Nummer 1. Aufstehen. Aufstehen means to get up or to stand up. So we're going from one place to another. So how would you say I got up at 9 o'clock? Ich bin 9 Uhr aufgestanden. Remember, irregular verbs have a change of stem. And the stem or root of the verb is what's left of the verb once you take the en off the infinitive. So stehen is the main verb, and if we take off the en, we're left with steh. And this changes to stand, which makes it irregular. And we put the GE between the prefix auf and the rest of the verb, so aufgestanden. Unser nächstes Beispiel, our next example, umziehen. This means to move. So how would you say we moved to Berlin a year ago? A year ago is vor einem Jahr, and to Berlin is nach Berlin. Pause the video and have a go. So hopefully you spotted that there's movement here from place to place. We've moved from one place to the other. So wir sind vor einem Jahr nach Berlin umgezogen. Very irregular. We have to put vor einem Jahr before Berlin, because we have to follow the time, manner, place rule. Here we've got the time, vor einem Jahr, and the place. So time goes before place in a general sentence in German. Wir sind vor einem Jahr nach Berlin umgezogen. Our next common irregular verb is teilnehmen. Teilnehmen. To take part. If you want to say to take part in, it's an, meaning in here. Doesn't always mean in, but here it does. An etwas teilnehmen. That means to take part in something. An is followed by dative. This is a set phrase. So how would you say she took part in the competition? The competition is der Wettbewerb. Pause the video and have a go. So we should have sie hat am Wettbewerb teilgenommen. Irregular, teilgenommen. The am here is an abbreviation for an dem. Dem being the masculine dative word for the. An dem becomes am. Sie hat am Wettbewerb teilgenommen. Well done if you got that one right. That's really, really tricky German grammar right there. And our last example for this lesson. Another irregular verb, mitbringen. Mitbringen. Bringen means to bring, and mitbringen means to bring with. So to bring with you. And bringen is very, very irregular. So how would you say, have you brought your dog with you? Dog is der Hund. Last one, have a go, pause the video, and then we'll check together. So, two options. If we've gone for the informal you, hast du deinen Hund mitgebracht? If we've gone for the formal you, haben Sie Ihren Hund mitgebracht? Ausgezeichnet. Excellent. Das war's. Now to my top tip. How can you recognize separable verbs? Well, option number one is learn the separable prefixes. Over time, when you become more familiar with German, you'll identify verbs that are separable and you'll just learn them. But you can also learn the list of separable prefixes if you like. And they are here, they're also in the PDF summary. There are certain separable prefixes which can be separable and other times can be inseparable. And in my next video, I'll be looking at inseparable prefixes. The other way you can identify a separable verb is if you hear the verb pronounced. Did you notice which part of the verb I stressed when I was talking about separable verbs? Zum Beispiel mitbringen, abfahren, mitmachen, einkaufen. Notice how I'm stressing the prefix. So with the verb mitmachen, I'm saying mitmachen, not mitmachen. Do you notice the difference? Mitmachen. Not mitmachen, mitmachen. If that first prefix is stressed, then the verb will be separable. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in my next video. Und das war's. Heute bekommst du aber auch eine Hausaufgabe von mir. Und zwar schreibe einen Satz mit einem trennbaren Verb im Perfekt in die Kommentare. So have a go at writing a sentence in the perfect tense using a separable verb in the comments. And I look forward to seeing your examples. Ich hoffe, dass du heute viel gelernt hast und ich wünsche dir einen wunderschönen Tag. Tschüss!